Meet the candidates, and they're pretty good. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Another day, another wacky liberal steps onto the 2020 field. And although it wasn't any real surprise when Vermont socialist Bernie Sanders decided to formally enter the race, it's always stunning to hear what the Muppet-like lefty actually believes.
You may recall that in 2016, many of the ideas that I talked about, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition-free, all of those ideas, people will say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical. You know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream.
Yeah, well, he's right about that. And with Hillary out of the way, Bernie thinks the second time's a charm. And after all, as he said, you know, he was socialist before socialism was cool. The 77-year-old trendsetter's policies run the gamut from that government-run health care to free college to doubling the minimum wage from what it is today. Now, all of this would be paid for by massive tax hikes. And he also throws around the R word a lot. Yep, well, that's the one.
You know, we began the political revolution in the 2016 campaign, and now it's time to move that revolution forward and make sure that that vision, those ideas are implemented into policy.
I'll translate for you. Bernie's coming for your money. And there aren't enough billionaires to pay for the trillions in spending he has in mind. And he's not exactly being revolutionary with this tired trope.
We have a president who is a pathological liar, and it gives me no pleasure to say that, but it's true. We have a president who is a racist, who is a sexist, who is a xenophobe, who is doing what no president in our lifetimes has come close to doing, and that is trying to divide us up.
Divide us up. Well, xenophobe, racist. Did he really cover them all? I mean, come on, Bernie. That's not original. But I'm telling you, it's a hell of a lot easier than explaining how he would do better trade deals than Trump, or how he would keep us out of more dumb wars than Trump has kept us out of, or how he would grow the economy faster than Trump. But Bernie will have to fend off challengers who are decades younger and decidedly more diverse. Kamala Harris, Cory Booker. Well, when they're not defending the actor fraud, Jussie Smollett, each are committed to the Green New Deal. And Booker's waving off concerns today about the cost. Oh, it's no problem whatsoever. It's going to pay for itself. And he says that fighting climate change is kind of like defeating Hitler or maybe the moon landing.
And there's a lot of people now that are blowing back on the Green New Deal. They're like, oh, it's impractical. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's all of this. If we used to govern our dreams that way, we would have never gone to the moon. We need to push the bounds of human potential because that is our history. And when the planet has been in peril in the past, who came forward to save Earth from the scourge of Nazi and totalitarian regimes? We came forward.
Very lofty rhetoric. Well, as for Senator Harris, she wants to do to America what the Democrat Party is doing today to California. And what she lacks in sound fiscal ideas, I think she makes up for in smiles and laughs at interesting times.
I just want to get this out of the way. The elephant in the room. But no, we're not going to have any elephants in the room.
Which tweet? What tweet?
About saying that it is a modern-day lynching. That
sorry.
Yes.
You're right.
And let's not forget Princess Running Left, Elizabeth Warren. Well, she's obviously going for the freeloaders vote, supporting perhaps more taxpayer-funded freebies than any other candidate out there, and that's saying something. Free health care, free college. Oh, come on, that's so passé. Why not free child care?
People say, so it's going to be really expensive, and the answer is it is. This will be about 4 times more than we have invested in our children. But that's exactly what we need to do. We can pay for universal child care and a whole lot more if we just ask the 0.1% to pay a fair share.
Okay, wait, fair share. Okay, when you hear that, red flag. That equals basically a tax rate that has to be at least around 75% to come close to covering all her boondoggles. But it's an odd thing with Warren. She needs the super rich, but she thinks they should be sidelined in American politics.
Billionaires and big corporations decided they wanted more of the pie, and they enlisted politicians to cut them a fatter slice. I'm not taking applications from billionaires who want to run a super PAC on my behalf. To protect their economic advantages, the rich and powerful have rigged our political systems as well.
Well, that aversion she shows there to money in politics, it sounds so altruistic. But it seems more like a marketing ploy than reality to me. Well, so said another potential 2020 candidate, Howard Schultz.
She came to see me a few years ago and asked me for a contribution for her Senate race.
Oh, well, that was yesterday. That was years ago. New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Let's get to her. She's a former moderate turned Me Too crusader. And she kind of finds herself struggling for relevancy and compelling rhetoric. She even inadvertently admitted that there is indeed a crisis at the U.S. border.
On immigration, I mean, there's a crisis going on at the border right now. What if we need to have proper asylum? This president doesn't believe in asylum. He's afraid of immigrants. He's afraid of refugees. And I just want to note that a lot of these people are indigenous to this land, and that border is cutting them off. And that's why the wall is so absurd and hurtful.
Wait a second. First of all, a wall is an inanimate object, Kirsten. But at least, I'm going to look at the glass half full, at least she acknowledges the crisis at the border. Oops. Look, it's easy to laugh off this parade of liberals, but remember that the Democrat Party is becoming more, not less radical. A recent Gallup poll showing that the majority of Democrats identify as liberal for the very first time, jumping from 25% back in 1994 to 51% in 2017. Well, in a climate like this, what does that mean? How does a candidate like Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar fit in?
So no Medicare for all?
It could be a possibility in the future. I'm just looking at something that will work now.
Oh, the Green New Deal.
So I don't think we are going to get rid of entire industries in the U.S.
Would you support free college for all?
I am not for free 4-year college for all, no. If I was a magic genie and could give that to everyone and we could afford it, I would.
Well, will she fill stadiums? If last night's ratings for her town hall on CNN were any indication, it's unlikely. Well, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement for a Midwest Democrat whose views are closer to Bill Clinton than Bernie Sanders. But what about the so-called dream ticket of Biden-Beto? Have you heard about that? The old guard plus the new kid with a chance to pick off Texas. Well, if Biden runs, he's going to have to make lots of promises to the AOC crowd, meaning in the end, the result ends up the same. My friends, if Democrats win, they're coming to take your money. The money you've made in this strong economy, the money you've worked really hard for, and they want to blow it on pipe dream policies that may sound kind of cool at a rally, but in practice, they never work. They just really love spending other people's money.
Dogs, donuts, and money. Only money is better. You know why? Because it don't make you fat and it don't poop all over the living room floor. There's only one thing I like better. Other people's money.
And that's the angle.
Before Salesforce, we had could not even tell you, maybe 100 different systems. And now it's one platform. For the first time, you can really connect everything seamlessly from power plant to the plug.
All right, joining me now with reaction, Monica Crowley, Washington Times senior opinion columnist, Dan Bongino, Fox News contributor, and Brian Moore, the Socialist Party's 2008 presidential candidate. He was way ahead of the curve. All right, Dan, Bernie just announced that he's received 150,000 individual donations since he announced. So no matter how crazy his ideas are, he seems pretty popular to me.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to redistribute some of that cash to some of the other candidates. I heard Elizabeth Warren only did about 300,000 over the first 48 hours, so Bernie should practice what he preaches. Listen, Laura, your monologue there was spot on. There are really two lanes in the Democrat Party right now running for the nomination for 2020. The radicals and the extreme radicals. They've tried this before. Remember with Dukakis and Mondale, and then they needed the Democrat Leadership Council to get them back to the center? We've already been here. The problem is, although this may appeal to a very passionate base of Bernie bros and whatever, you will never win a general election running on hiking taxes, taking people's health care, and taking over the education system, and throw open borders in. You have absolutely no chance.
Brian, do you feel a little, verklempt? About this whole socialist thing. I mean, you were kind of a man ahead of your time back in 2008. Now everyone's trying to ride on your coattails, including Bernie Sanders, I might add.
Well, they're really not socialists. They're just reformers of the capitalist system, but they're still within the traditional capitalist system. So their incremental entitlements from the government may help temporarily, but it's not going to be the systemic economic system change that we need.
So, Brian, if I get this straight, I want to make sure I get it straight. They're not socialist enough for the real socialists? Is that where this is headed?
That is correct.
So you're talking like nationalizing entire industries beyond just healthcare, okay, so just nationalizing it all and really do, kind of the thing that Marx really wanted. I mean, the true anti-capitalist stance. So, Monica, that's probably the best news they've heard all day, because Brian's kind of putting them in the middle, and if you can figure that out, which, I mean, this is why I'm glad Brian is on tonight. But there is a new sense of affection, is there not, for this ideas like universal health care? It sounds so nice, it's universal. Who could be against that? But you eventually run out of other people's money.
Yes, and I've been warning now for many years about the ascent of socialism on the left, and it was met with eye-rolling at me for many years now, Laura, and now here we are, this is the defining ideology of the Democratic Party. I've got a column in the Washington Times coming later this week, which talks about what the left does in terms of strategy and methodology. They throw these extremes out, like Medicare for all or single payer, or in the more recent case, the Green New Deal. And they don't expect it to be achieved overnight. In fact, they invite the condemnation from people like Dan and you and me, because they want the pile on, so then they can affect it piecemeal, and they look reasonable and they look moderate on the way to affecting their most radical policies. This is why we are in this position now. And by the way, it wasn't Bernie Sanders who brought the party to the radical left. It was President Obama. And people forget that. They overlook that. Barack Obama is the one who moved the Democrats away from the party of Bill Clinton now to a socialist revolutionary party that has made people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez possible.
Yeah, that was his. Those were really his roots in college and law school. I mean, everyone's read all the books on Obama's upbringing. That's really more Dan who he was. I got to go back to Bernie though, because he was the man of the moment this past weekend. So Sanders back in the day, even he, when he was getting into politics, even he knew that Medicare for all was literally a bankrupt idea. Let's watch.
One of the points that we understand, and I think was reinforced that when we went to Canada, we expanded Medicaid to everybody, right? Give everybody a Medicaid card. We would be spending such an astronomical sum of money that, we would bankrupt the nation.
So, I don't know, maybe he's changed too. He might have gotten his Medicaid mixed up with his Medicare, though. But we all got it. He was pointing to Canada and what was happening in Canada. But he's now, Dan, he's saying, look, everyone's a poser. I'm out there. I'm the real deal. All these other kids are trying to ride on my train. He wants to kick them off, but he'd be 79 when he was
he's the real
inaugurated.
deal, all right, Laura. Yeah, he's the real deal. If the real deal means a socialist who just, what has he bought? He just bought his third home. Bernie's probably worth close to $1 million himself. He's the prototypical limousine liberal. But, you know, Bernie's onto something there. P.J. O'Rourke once said, you know, you think healthcare is expensive now, wait till it's free. The problem with your socialist guest and socialism in general is it won't work because it can't work. How can you explain to me how people who have been in, say, the airline industry their entire lives have a hard time sometimes turning a profit? They're experts in the industry. And you think a government bureaucrat who spent, 15 years filling out a spreadsheet, trying to get paid his overtime on a Friday is going to take over the airline industry and run it? I mean, it's so absurd on its face. I can't believe that socialists even dare to show their faces on TV without complete, total embarrassment. And not only that, it leads to death and destruction as well. That's just another nasty, negative externality of socialism.
All right, Brian, I mean, you got your chance now. You tell us where socialism is working in the world. And where has it produced positive results for a wide range of citizens?
Well, first of all, what I'm hearing so far is this politics of fear, the red menace, the red fear. You know, they're going to take everything away from us.
Okay, excuse me while I yawn. I asked you a question.
Okay.
Where is socialism working, Brian? Don't sit back there and use your usual insults. It doesn't work. I'm asking you a serious question. Where has it worked? And where has it spread happiness and positivity and a higher standard of living for a broad range of citizenry? Where?
Nowhere. It is nowhere in this world is socialism working.
Thank you.
The reason,
there we go.
And the reason, the reason it isn't working is because the United States of America and other capitalist countries have undermined any efforts by a legitimate, democratically elected socialist to redistribute the wealth and to radically change the economic system. But
Brian, what did you do for a living? I mean, did you ever have a job in the capitalist system, or did you just
I worked in the private sector, HMOs, until Ronald Reagan came along and he canceled the HMO Act of 1973 and he turned it over to Wall Street and the private sector, and then you ended up with a lot of billionaires. And the consumers suffered.
Okay, so
socialism doesn't work because freedom gets in the way, Laura. That's his point. Socialism doesn't work because things like freedom get in the way. Yeah.
Socialism promotes freedom and liberty and egalitarianism.
It also promotes death and destruction and gulags.
Okay, as long as you don't run afoul of the people with the real power, which is the upper echelon of any socialist government. They have all the perks, they have all the benefits, and they make the decisions for the little people.
That's right.
They make the decisions. That's not freedom. That's tyranny.
That's not socialism either. That's not socialism. Socialism is when the workers.
Is it working in Canada? Monica, I'll give you the final say. But I'm glad Brian is on. He's apparently mad that the HMO thing didn't work out for him. God bless him. And it was a bad deal at the HMO. So now all of us should suffer under a socialist system.
Laura.
Monica, close it out.
Laura, the elite ruling class under communism, which is what you were referring to, is what Vladimir Lenin referred to as the vanguard. So yes, in fact, historically, that is the conception under original Marxism. That's number one. Number two, the kids of today who are seduced by the idea of socialism only are seduced by the idea of quote-unquote equality. But what they don't understand is that because human beings are inherently unequal with different talents and strengths and weaknesses, you can only have equality at the barrel of a gun. So what they're not being taught is you can only have enforced equality with a police state. When you start telling kids the truth about that, you will see those numbers start to turn on quote-unquote socialism.
I am glad Brian came on, and I would like him to come back. And maybe you can convince me that there is a country where it worked well and not blame America. But it was a really interesting conversation. This is a big issue.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people are now gravitating toward that, probably not understanding it completely. Thanks so much, guys.